Welcome back to the Supercoach Nuff channel. In this video we're going to look at our tops, chops, traps and slaps for NRL Fantasy Round 3. So for those who aren't familiar with how this works, essentially we look at the top trade in and trade out options across each line, and we look at whether it's a good idea or not so good idea. And if it's a trade in that we think is a good idea, we give it that's tops. If it's a good trade-out option, well, we give them the chop. If it's a poor trade-in option, well, it's probably a trap that we don't want to get caught in. And if it's a poor trade-out option, we need to give ourselves a slap and keep the faith, essentially. So at hooker, we've got probably our top pick in top pick across all of the lines with Joey Lassie. Named to play 80 minutes essentially without a backup hooker on the bench. Brad Arthur, we call him a liar and other bad things, but he's a man of his word. He just wanted to see it for himself. And I think, Lussick last week with his, 75-minute performance or something, has proven that he can go the journey and do it well. So for that reason, he is the best buy of the week. There's other great options, but I think, he's the one we want to get on before he really takes off and gets away from us. On the chopping block, we've got Brendan Hands. So, people were holding him in the hope that he could, find some minutes and work his way in. But Lussick has outplayed him, and he is in the extended reserve. So if you've got him, you can trade out. If you got the money, you can go up to Lussick, or Danny Levi is still a viable option. Speaking of which, I will sort of go a bit out of order and talk about Danny Levi as the slap option for the week. So if you're thinking about trading Levi to Lussick, what I'd suggest is that you don't have to stick with just two hookers in fantasy. It's not like Supercoach. The bench is very fluid. So, they can coexist on your bench. You don't have to carry multiple players in all the positions. So you can, maybe go a little bit thin on, say, a wing fullback or a centre wing, because a pick like Levi does offer that greater value. So, don't panic on Levi just to get Lussick. You can have both. All right, and I guess the trap I've got this week is Havili from the Rabbitohs. And I guess it's just a classic example of don't sort of look at 1 week's score and, this week's break even as, the guide of who to bring in. He is dual position, which is nice. He's a nice price, but he's not going to score that high score every week. Generally he's going to play 30, 40 minutes in the middle, do his job, return that 20 to 30 sort of points. So, I think if you want a hooker, go Lussick, go Levi, don't go Havili. In the middles, I've gone with Terrell May again as the tops pick of the week. He showed again on the weekend why he's so popular. And I think, this could be the last week before, again, he's one that we potentially miss the boat on. You only get 2 trades in round 1 and round 2, so we can't have everyone. We should have picked him from the start, but if you are looking for a middle, he is the one I would go hard for this week. On the chopping block, I've gone with Alex Seyfarth, although potentially you can see lurking on the fringe there, we've got Payne Haas. So I think Seyfarth was the obvious choice, just given his role in the team was starting for 20 minutes and then not coming back on. Admittedly, the other guys did play okay in the middle from all reports, but if he's going to essentially be that extra middle rotation guy that doesn't play big minutes, then we don't need him in our team. So we can comfortably chop him. There's plenty of value this week that we can get on. So, we don't have to necessarily find money to trade up to a May. We can move to another position that offers a bit more value. But yeah, Payne Haas floating there. I did originally have him as the slap, but sounds like from the latest report that he could actually be out for a while with his knee injury. So it's one to monitor. Obviously, if you're unsure, you could potentially trade out this week. It's a lot of money sitting on the bench. But again, if it's only going to be for 1 week or 2 weeks, you know, is it really worth the two trades? Potentially not. So that's why he's floating around there on the edge. I guess the trap I've got is in line with the conversation we just had around Seyfarth, and that's Samuel Afano from the Tigers. So played awesome on the weekend, but he's not going to score a try and a try assist every week. So, if you're expecting a 50 every week, you're probably going to be very disappointed. He probably is at a 30, which does provide some value. But yeah, just be mindful of, you're probably not getting what you signed up for if you're basing it on 1 week of output. And saying that, he is named off the bench again this week. So even though Seyfarth's been dropped to the bench, they put Bolle in the 13 instead. So I think that's more reflective of the pecking order of the Tigers' middle rotation. And on the trap this week, like I said, given that Haas has sort of floated up towards chopped territory, I've gone with Sitili Tupanua. It might seem a bit counterintuitive given the potential for what I'm going to do in my round preview tomorrow. But I think given the fact that Wong has been dropped to accommodate getting Nat Butcher into the starting team, um, and they've got Angus Crichton on the bench admittedly, but I think potentially what will happen there is Butcher will float into the middle and Crichton would play the edge role, and I think Tupanua will play 80 minutes. So obviously round one was affected by injury. He's still recovering from that. Um, so yeah, I'd recommend holding, but I can understand why people would trade out. Again, not the strongest sort of slap candidate, but definitely one to think twice about before you put him on the chopping block. So onto the edge forwards, and I guess probably the second best overall trading option this week, in my opinion, is Fini Fuiaki from the Cowboys. So obviously gets a starting spot this week with Lukey out, so his job security is quite good. They've only got Jack Kajeski on the bench, who we're not scared of as a fantasy relevant option. Might limit Fini Fuiaki's minutes, but we know he's got the potential to score big. So we want to absolutely get on that at his price before he takes off and establishes himself potentially as a first grade edge forward. So obviously the chop candidate is Heelan Lukey. Um, not playing for 6 to 8 weeks. It's an easy swap to Fini Fuiaki if you wish. But his price is pretty close enough that you could get to Lussick quite easily, if not make money. I'm not strong on the fantasy numbers, if I'm being honest. Definitely, look at Supercoach numbers a bit closer. But yeah, he's an obvious candidate to chop this week. On the trap list, I've got Zach Hosking, and I think this is more clear cut than what it would be in Supercoach. So in Supercoach, we talked about the fact that Hosking is about to make a lot of money for us, but in fantasy, he's already made that money. So, relegated to the bench to make way for Elliot Whitehead. Still will make some money this week, but, there's nowhere near as much value in him in fantasy terms as what there is in Supercoach. So, I can understand people trading him in Supercoach, but he's a no-go for fantasy. And the slap option this week on the edge, I've gone with Jamin Salmon. Um, so I think if you wanted to trade him with Fini Fuiaki, I might allow it, but I am basing this strongly on the fact he's playing the Titans this week, so it could be one of their best chances for attacking upside. And as that ball playing lock, he definitely offers that upside. Um, so I'd give him another week, see how he goes, and then we might be able to move him on. Um, I don't think Finny Furiaki will get that far away this week. Um, so yeah, if you wanted to wait a week, you could. But again, I can totally understand people making that move. Um, but again, we need to nominate someone, and Salmon is my pick there. Onto the halves, and so Lockie Galvin is the top pick for a second week in a row. People may have wanted to have a look at him last week and see how he went, and by all accounts, he went pretty well. So, I think you want to get on him sooner rather than later. So get on him this week. Um, you know, can make money from trading most other options, and then obviously use that to fund moves for Lussick or those sorts of picks. Terrell May, whatever you need. On the chopping block, I've gone with Sam Walker. Probably the obvious choice would have been an Ezra Mam type pick. But I guess what Sam Walker represents is that sort of middling half. He's not a gun like Hines, Cleary, Sean Johnson. He's not a super cheapie like Galvin or, even to a lesser extent Flanagan. Um, so it just seems like, you could use that money better elsewhere, either as, getting towards a gun option or, you know, trading down to a cheapy option and using that money elsewhere. On the trap this week, I've gone Chad Townsend. So never really been fantasy relevant, even when he was at the Sharks, kicking goals, winning premierships. He's very much that organising halfback, which is great for a team like the Cowboys. But not really fantasy relevant. So um, at his price point, I'd probably you know go with Galvin. If you've got Galvin and you really need another half, I'd go Flanagan. Just offers a little bit more value. Um, yeah, not one for me. And SJ is my slap for this week. A couple of people thinking, oh, do I fade SJ? I mean, you picked him for a reason. Um, if you've got him, I'd keep the faith because you're going to want him back in around Origin time anyway. So, hopefully he comes good. But I don't think there's a lot of value in trading him out at this point. Onto the centres, and I've got Far Tape as the tops pick for this week. Um, not necessarily the strongest shout given he only scored quite low last week, but his job security is good. So, Stafford Toa out for 6 to 8 weeks, I think was a report. So obviously Justin Wallen will just slot back in, but it probably also means that Far Tarpe's got that spot for a bit longer than we anticipated originally. So I guess if you want a centre, he's nice and cheap. Obviously, if you don't have Strange or Ben Travojevic, get on them first as a priority. But then Far Tarpe is less owned and I think a good option for those that are looking for something cheap and serviceable in the centres. On the chopping block, I've gone with Jack Bird. So, somewhat popular at the start of the year because of his dual position, centre and edge. But realistically, that only works out if you're playing on the edge. Like a Ben Travojevic, Ewan Aitken, is lobbed up there. But Jack Bird is playing in the centres exclusively, it looks like, this year. So here's one to get out of as soon as you can. The trap this week, I've gone with Cooler from the Seagulls. Um, so just, I guess, again, a bit like Chad Townsend, not overly relevant. The Seagulls are playing well, and he's obviously going to, get some tries off the back of that, but he does have a really low base. So I think, his centre is probably more of a guns are cheapies type approach. Not one I'm really looking to go on these mid-range flyers on, but happy to be proven wrong. And I guess if there was like an award for like slap of the week, it would be for those that are trading out the hammer. I mean, his dual position. He's not top dollar. He scored 3 tries last weekend. So obviously, I can see some people panicking because they need a cover in the centres. Trade out one of your extra middles or trade out one of your halves. Don't trade out the hammer. I couldn't believe the amount of people that traded him out this week. It's unreal. So for that reason, I've got him as the slap of the week, if that is such a thing. And I guess it's my channel, my video. I could do it. I don't know what the symbol would be. Maybe comment below if you've got any ideas. And I guess the last position is wing fullback. So Ryan Pappenhausen is the top pick this week. He showed why he was a fairly popular option in preseason with his 80 on the weekend. He offers that upside of the top level guys at a mid range price. I guess the only thing is he does have the buy next week, which isn't ideal, but he will make some money before the buy. He'll make money after the buy. I think he's one you have to have in your team at this early point in the season. On the chopping block, I've got Kalen Ponga. Um, I guess we know what he's capable of, but the Knights haven't looked too great the first 2 rounds. So he's leaking cash. I think we can fade him until closer to Origin. They do have a nice run going into the first Origin game. We can also then sort of see if he is in the Origin frame. If he is, we may need to sort of just hold tight. But yeah, I've got Ponga on the chopping block this week. The trap of the week is in the wing fullback spot anyway. Is Ronaldo Mulatalo. So people get very excited when players like Ronaldo go well 2 weeks in a row, but they don't typically go for a number of weeks in a row. So I think you've probably missed the boat if you wanted to get on Ronaldo. There's not much value in that pick. Even if he does score tries, he's not going to make a lot of cash, and we really should be trying to generate as much team value as we can early doors, so that we can build our sort of final 17s as quickly as we can. And then on the slap list, I've got Jack Bostock. Somewhat in line with Hammer. He's on the buy this week, so we can see why people would want to trade out. But realistically, he's going to make some more money. Right? Try and find another way to get an extra wing fullback in your squad if you want. Um, and I think even if you're looking at a similar price point, there's not a lot of value. So yeah, find another way to cover your wing fullback spot if need be. But yeah, I think that covers all the positions, all the tops, all the chops, all the traps, and all the slaps. So obviously, if you've got any strong opinions or thoughts, want to ask a question, feel free to use the comment section below this video. Obviously, if you enjoy this sort of analysis and I guess the NRL fantasy stuff in general, give the video a like. Uh, Subscribe to the channel for all the fantasy sports stuff we have, not just NRL. We've got a bit of AFL, bit of EPL, our summer sports too when they come around. But other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.